You're here because you're tired of being ruled by your thoughts, the chaos, the doubts, the constant noise in your head. You pause because something inside you knows there must be another way. You're not alone. In a world that rewards reaction over reflection, mastering your mind feels like an act of rebellion, a quiet, powerful rebellion. The Stoics knew this battle well. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor with the weight of the world on his shoulders, wrote about taming the wild horse of the mind. Epictetus, once a slave, taught that true freedom starts when you stop being a slave to your emotions. Seneca reminded us that suffering often comes not from what happens, but from how we think about what happens. This video is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally sovereign, calm, without apathy, strong, without aggression, clear, without coldness. Over the next 8 chapters, you'll learn timeless strategies from the quiet strength of perspective to the art of premeditation, to the serenity that comes from releasing control. Each lesson, a torch to light the way through the fog. Each moment, an invitation to return to yourself. You're not just learning Stoicism today, you're stepping into the role of your own inner guide. And if that journey speaks to you, if you want more calm, more clarity, more control, I invite you to subscribe. Quiet wisdom is rare in today's world, but you just found a channel devoted to it. Let's begin, because the mind you master becomes the life you lead. Number 1, guard the inner citadel. You sit quietly. The world outside moves fast. Headlines flash, people argue, demands pile up. But inside, you begin to sense a stillness, a space that belongs only to you. This is your inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius called it that the fortress within where no storm, no insult, no failure can reach unless you open the gates. You pause and realize just how often those gates are flung wide open. A rude comment sneaks in and suddenly your peace is gone. A failure echoes too long and your confidence collapses. A headline invades your mind and now your day feels like doom. So, why does this matter? Because everything you experience is filtered through the state of your mind. And if that mind is unguarded, distracted, fragile, then even a small breeze can knock you off course. The Stoics knew you don't control the outside world. You control how your mind meets it. That's where your freedom lives. That's where your power begins. Imagine your mind as a stronghold high on a hill. Its walls are not built of stone, but of focused perspective and discipline. Every day, life tries to climb those walls. And every day, you choose whether to let it in. So what is the principle here? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You breathe slowly as the words sink in. He's not telling you to become numb. He's telling you to reclaim the throne of your own attention. That's the citadel. Not escape from life, but command over how life passes through you. Think of your thoughts like guests. Some arrive with kindness, others carry poison. But you are the gatekeeper. You choose which ones sit at your table. You decide who stays. Can you feel that shift, the reclaiming of something that was always yours? Let's bring this down to earth. You wake up in the morning and the noise begins. Notifications, emails, opinions. Without the citadel, you absorb it all. You're pulled in, shaken, reactive. But with the citadel, you pause, you observe. You choose your response not because you're cold, but because you're calm. Now imagine someone insults you. They question your worth. They try to stir anger. Without the citadel, it works. You react, you argue, you carry that bitterness all day long. But inside the citadel, you see the insult as noise. You remember their words don't define you. Your response does. You let it pass like wind against stone. Do you feel the strength in that? Not passivity, but choice. not weakness, but restraint. This is not about hiding from the world, it's about facing the world with poise. So how do you build this citadel? Not overnight, but with rituals, boundaries, and inner dialogue. Step 1, protect the morning. Before the world reaches in, you go inward, you sit, you reflect, you write. You prepare your mind like a warrior sharpens their sword. Step 2, question your judgments. Not every thought deserves your trust. Just because it appears doesn't mean it's true. Let your reason be the guard at the gate. Step 3, return to the breath. When you're pulled from the citadel, and you will be come back, use your breath like a rope to climb back inside, back to stillness, back to strength. This practice isn't glamorous, it's quiet, invisible. But over time, it becomes who you are. And people will notice, they'll feel it in your presence. They won't know what it is exactly, but they'll sense a steadiness in you that they don't have. And some will try to shake it, to test your gates. Let them. Because you've chosen something higher. You've chosen mastery, not of them, but of yourself. So I ask you now, what enters your citadel today that doesn't deserve to stay? And more importantly, what will you choose to defend? The Stoics never promised ease, but they offered clarity. You don't need to control everything. You just need to stand guard. Let this be your reminder. You are not the noise. You are the one who hears it. You are not the chaos. You are the calm watching it unfold. Your mind is not a battlefield. It is a fortress. So build it brick by brick, choice by choice, moment by moment, because once you guard your citadel, you don't just protect peace, you become it. Number 2, learn to pause before you react. A message arrives, it's sharp, unfair, you feel your jaw tighten, your heartbeat quicken. But you pause just a few seconds, and in those seconds, something extraordinary happens. You don't send the angry reply. You don't spiral into frustration. You don't let a single moment hijack your entire day. You just breathe and choose. That's the power of pause. You see, most people live in reaction mode. They confuse stimulus with identity. If someone cuts them off in traffic, they become rage. If someone ignores them, they become shame. If someone challenges them, they become defense. But you are practicing something rare. You are learning that between what happens and how you respond, there is a sacred space. That space, it's where your peace lives. It's where wisdom waits. It's where the true you sits patiently, watching. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." So let's unpack that. It's not the thing that hurts. It's what you think about the thing. It's the meaning you assign to it. It's the story your mind tells in the heat of the moment. And the faster the story, the more likely it is to be false. Now, why does this matter in your life? Because if you don't master that pause, your day belongs to everyone but you. Anyone can control you. They just need the right trigger, a word, a look, a post, a delay. But once you learn to insert space, even just a breath, you reclaim authority over your emotional landscape. And that's not weakness. That's power in its highest form. Think of it like this. You're standing by a still pond. Someone throws a stone, a rude word, an unfair situation, ripples form. But if you react immediately, you dive straight in, you stir the waters, you add to the chaos. But if you wait, if you just wait a moment, the ripples settle, clarity returns, and suddenly you see things as they are, not as they felt in the heat. That's what Stoic training offers. Not emotional suppression, but emotional sovereignty. So how do you practice this? You begin with the breath. That's your anchor. When something upsets you, don't speak, don't decide, just breathe. Let the first wave pass. Let the chemicals subside. Let the ego cool. Let the story soften. Then choose. Will you reply? Will you walk away? Will you laugh? Will you educate whatever it is? You choose it, not the emotion, you. Here's a practice you can try. Next time someone irritates you, say silently to yourself, "This is a test, not of them, of you. Can you remain calm?" While your body wants to react, can you respond like the person you want to be, not the person your impulse pulls you toward? You won't always succeed, and that's okay. This isn't perfection, it's practice. Every pause builds the muscle. Every delay creates distance. And in that distance, you'll find your truest self waiting, patiently ready to respond with clarity, not chaos. Epictetus put it this way: it's not things that upset us, but our judgment about things. So slow the judgment, question it, delay it, and you weaken its grip. Now picture this. You're in a heated moment. Words are flying, tension rises. You feel the pull to interrupt, to correct, to win, but you stop. Just stop. You look away, you breathe, you nod, not to agree, but to give yourself space. That moment, that silence, that tiny break in the storm, may be the most powerful thing you do all day. Because while others live like fire, you become the water, cool, calm, and steady, even when the world burns. Let's make this even more practical. Create a pause phrase, something you whisper to yourself in heated moments. It could be, "Not yet. I choose peace. I don't need to answer this." Silence is power. This phrase becomes your shield, a gentle reminder that you are not your emotion. You are the observer of your emotion. Now here's a question for you. What would your day look like if you paused before every reaction? How many regrets would vanish? How many conflicts would dissolve? How much energy would return to you? Instead of being spent on proving, defending, or explaining, this isn't just a mental trick, it's a life strategy. The Stoics didn't rise through perfect lives. They rose through restraint. They learned that the world doesn't need your immediate opinion. It needs your thoughtful presence. So remember this. The pause is not empty. It's full of possibility. The person who learns to pause is the person who learns to lead, not just others, but themselves. You feel that truth, don't you? The quiet strength, the grounded power, the deep exhale. Carry it with you and let the next moment be one you choose. Number 3, the view from above. You sit in your room, surrounded by walls, screens, tasks, timelines, and yet your mind can rise above it all. Right now you can close your eyes and float above your chair, above your home, above the city skyline, up through the clouds, into quiet sky, higher and higher, until the noise below fades into nothing. This is the view from above, a Stoic practice that lifts you out of stress and into perspective. Why does it matter? Because most of your suffering doesn't come from events. It comes from how close you hold them. Too close. And they distort everything. That email feels like war. That traffic jam feels like betrayal. That failure feels like your identity. But rise above, zoom out, and everything changes. The Stoics practiced this often. They imagined life from the view of the cosmos. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself how small a part of the boundless and unfathomable time is assigned to every man. It wasn't to feel insignificant, but to feel free. Because when you see how vast time is, you stop clinging to every moment. When you see how massive the universe is, you stop shrinking under the weight of small problems. You rise, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Try it now. Picture your current worry, the thing pulling your thoughts in a loop. Now, rise above it. Zoom out one level, your home, then the neighborhood, then the city, then the continent, then the globe. You're looking down on it all, and what once felt enormous now barely registers. You feel relief. You feel space. You feel possibility, because the burden only felt heavy when you were carrying it alone with no distance, no scale. This is not denial. It's design, a design for thinking clearly without being consumed. Marcus Aurelius practiced this while leading an empire. If he could find stillness amidst war, you can find it amidst traffic, a rude comment, or a missed deadline. He often imagined life as a river, time flowing endlessly, people coming and going, events rising and falling like waves. You are the observer on the shore. You're not drowning, you're watching, you're learning. Now let's bring this into your day. You're running late. The meeting starts in 10 minutes. Someone cuts you off, spills coffee, your heart races. You feel the heat, but then you breathe, you rise, and you remind yourself, in a week, I won't even remember this moment. This is a dot, not the whole canvas. Zoom out. Suddenly, your grip loosens. You don't snap, you don't panic. You respond from that higher place. That's the view from above. It's not floating away. It's seeing more, so you can feel less overwhelmed. Let's take it further. You argue with someone you care about. Words hurt, silence follows. You could sit in blame, replay the moment, feel the sting, or you could step back. Ask, what does this look like in the story of our whole relationship? What matters more, being right or reconnecting? If I saw this from space, would it still hurt the same? When you see the whole, you stop clinging to the part. This shift, this mental altitude, makes you wise. It humbles you. Not to make you small, but to lift your soul above the mess. Try making this a daily ritual. Each evening pause. Ask yourself, what felt big today that really isn't? What am I holding too close? What can I rise above tomorrow? The answers will soften your heart and sharpen your vision. Now picture this. A hawk soaring over a valley. Below, animals, rivers, storms, light shade. The hawk does not panic. It sees everything, but remains centered. You are that hawk. You feel more because you see more, and you react less because you understand more. So here's your challenge. Next time stress tightens its grip, pause, then rise. Mentally, emotionally, see your life like a timeline. Zoom out far enough to spot your wisdom, not just your worry. Because this moment, it's not the whole story. It's one line in a long chapter, one chapter in a greater book. You are not the mistake. You are not the chaos. You are not the detail you hate. You are the writer of the whole narrative. The one who sees from above, never gets lost in the dirt. Let me ask you now, gently, what are you holding so tightly that only distance could loosen it? What might shift? If you chose to rise instead of react, the Stoics didn't rise because they were cold. They rose because they cared too much to stay stuck in the small. So rise today, not to escape your life, but to return to it with clarity, with peace, with a view from above. Number 4, master desire, not the world. You wake up and the chase begins. More messages, more notifications, more goals to hit, more things to want, and underneath it all, a whisper. You're not enough yet. So you keep going, faster, hungrier, restless. But the Stoics would ask you, is this really freedom? Or another form of slavery? You pause, you breathe, and for the first time today, you ask yourself, who's in charge here, me or my desire? Epictetus said it clearly. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. That sounds harsh, but it isn't about living without joy. It's about reclaiming joy from the trap of needing more. Because here's the truth, desire never ends. You get the thing, and your mind wants the next. You reach the goal, and it moves the finish line. It's a treadmill disguised as progress, and it exhausts you. Slowly, you felt it. That fleeting high when the package arrives. The light count goes up. The paycheck lands, but the feeling fades, doesn't it? And the mind, unsatisfied, asks for more. The Stoics called this the tyranny of desire. Not because desire is evil, but because when it drives you, you're no longer driving yourself. Think of desire like fire. A little it warms you, too much it consumes you. And most people, they've built their lives around feeding the flames. more comfort, more praise, more stuff. But the Stoic path, it offers something deeper, not more, but mastery, not indulgence, but intentionality. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." You let that settle in your chest. It's not your bank account that defines you. It's your relationship to enough. Let's make this real. You're scrolling social media, someone's on vacation, someone just bought a new car, someone's body looks perfect, and you suddenly feel less than. Not because you're lacking, but because comparison activates a desire you didn't even choose. But what if, instead of chasing, you questioned? What if you said that's their path? I don't need what they have to feel whole. I define success by peace, not possessions. You see, desire thrives on unconscious living. It creeps in through comparison, distraction, and boredom. But once you become aware, you weaken its grip. That's the practice. Catch the craving, name it, examine it. Then ask, will this bring lasting peace or just temporary pleasure? Most desires don't survive that kind of honesty. Let's take another example. You've been working hard. You deserve a break. You crave indulgence, food, entertainment, spending. And sometimes you say yes, and that's okay. But when it becomes automatic, when you start escaping life, instead of engaging with it, you lose sight of your power. The Stoics didn't reject pleasure. They just refused to be owned by it. Epictetus taught, don't be the slave of what you think you need. Be the master of what you can choose to live without. Here's a powerful metaphor. Imagine your life is a boat. Every desire is weight, a few bags manageable, but too many, and you start to sink. Mastering desire means knowing which bags to carry and which ones to throw overboard. So how do you live this today? Start small. Pick one thing you often crave and delay it. Not forever, just long enough to ask, do I really need this right now? This moment of pause, it breaks the automatic loop. You might still choose it, but now it's a choice. And that's where your strength lies. Here's another practice. Spend one day each week in intentional discomfort. Simple food, no scrolling, silence, solitude. Let yourself miss things so you can see that you survive without them. And often, you'll find peace was waiting underneath the noise. The Stoics practiced this to remind themselves, happiness isn't about getting what you want. It's about wanting what you already have. So take a breath, look around. What have you been told you need that you actually don't? What's one desire today you can question, pause, and maybe, just maybe, let go? Because here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing everything is the moment you feel full. The moment you let go of wanting is the moment you feel free. You are not your cravings. You are not your goals. You are not your next purchase. You are already whole. The rest is just noise. So let this be your practice today, not to kill desire, but to tame it, not to have nothing, but to need nothing, because the one who masters desire masters their mind, and the one who masters their mind masters their life. Number 5, Premeditatio Malorum. Prepare for the storm. You open your eyes, and the day hasn't begun yet, but in your mind, you're already there. You picture things going wrong, the traffic, the delays, the missed messages, the person who speaks harshly, the unexpected bill. You don't panic, you prepare. This is not negativity, it's power. The Stoics called it Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils, visualizing obstacles before they happen, so that when they do, you're not surprised. You're ready, grounded, unshaken. Seneca said, he robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand. So why does this matter in your life? Because most suffering isn't just pain, it's shock, the suddenness, the I didn't see that coming. But what if you did? What if you walked into the day knowing it won't be perfect and welcoming that imperfection like an old friend? You don't hope for pain, but you stop pretending it won't show up. You expect the storm, and because of that, you build shelter before it rains. Let's bring this down to earth. You're about to have a difficult conversation. Instead of hoping it goes well, you mentally rehearse the worst outcome. They might disagree. They might raise their voice. They might misunderstand you. And you feel that tension now, not later. You breathe through it. You find your calm before the waves hit. So when you enter that room, you're steady, prepared. And if it goes better than expected, that's a gift. But if it doesn't, you've already walked through the fire in your mind. That's Stoic strength. Think of a sailor. He doesn't curse the sea when the winds rise. He expects them. He trains in calm waters. For storms he knows will come. And when they do, he tightens the ropes. He adjusts the sails. He doesn't panic, he acts. So must you. Each morning you practice not to summon fear, but to shape courage. You ask what might go wrong today. What if I fail? What if I'm misunderstood? What if things don't go as planned? And you visualize, without dramatizing, not to sink into despair, but to rise with resilience. Because when you've already walked the path of discomfort in your mind, you walk it in the world with dignity. Here's a simple exercise. Every morning before you begin, write down 3 things that could go wrong today. Then next to each, write, and if it does, I'll handle it. That sentence becomes your armor. You're not resisting life, you're meeting it on your terms. And here's the twist. When you stop fearing pain, pain loses its edge. You realize you've survived worse. You're not fragile, you bend, you don't break. Even in failure, you remain whole. This mindset isn't just for bad days. It transforms every day. Because when the coffee spills, the email gets ignored, the client says no. You don't unravel, you nod, you breathe, you say I saw you coming, and you move on. That is the mental posture of a warrior in peace, of a builder who knows storms will come, but builds anyway. Now let's take it deeper. Premeditatio Malorum doesn't just apply to small moments. It applies to life itself. Death, loss, change. The Stoics didn't shy away from these. They meditated on them not to be morbid, but to be grateful. When you face the truth of impermanence, you cherish what's here now. You hug tighter. You speak more gently. You complain less. You thank more. Because nothing is promised. And when you've already made peace with endings, you live the present fully without fear. Seneca practiced this daily. He said, rehearse this, a man can lose nothing truly his own. So you pause now and you ask, what am I afraid of losing that I don't truly possess? What hardship can I begin to meet before it meets me? You don't have to rehearse tragedy, just truth. And the truth is, this life is unpredictable. Pain is inevitable, but suffering, that's optional, because suffering is resistance, and stoicism is readiness. So you train quietly, daily, lovingly, and one day, someone will ask, how are you so calm when everything's falling apart? And you'll smile, because they don't know. You've already lived this moment in your mind. You've already walked through the fire. You've already made peace with the storm. And now you simply live. So let me ask you, what fear could you rehearse not to suffer early, but to suffer less? What challenge could you greet in your mind so it doesn't surprise your soul? Premeditatio Malorum isn't about expecting the worst. It's about preparing your best. It's a reminder that you are not here to float through life. You're here to meet it with steady eyes and a strong heart. Because when you expect the storm, you learn to love the calm. And when you prepare for what might hurt, you honor what already heals. Number 6, turn obstacles into fuel. You didn't ask for this challenge. You didn't expect that setback. You weren't planning for things to break, stall, or fall apart. But here you are, staring at a wall, stuck, delayed, defeated, maybe even doubting yourself. Now, you have two choices. You can resist it, curse it, fight it, shrink beneath it. Or you can rise, not by going around the obstacle, but by going through it. This is the Stoic path. Marcus Aurelius said it best. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. You breathe that in slowly. What blocks the path is the path. What delays your progress is where growth waits. What breaks your rhythm becomes your training ground. Let that sink in. You are not meant to be untouched by life. You are meant to be transformed by it. Obstacles are not interruptions. They are invitations to think deeper, act wiser, become stronger. Think of water hitting a rock. It doesn't stop. It adapts. It carves its way forward, drop by drop, quietly, patiently, persistently. You are that water and the stone in your path. It's not the end. It's the beginning of your next lesson. But first, let's be honest. When something goes wrong, a plan fails, a person lets you down, a dream slips away, you feel it, you ache, you question, you grieve, and that's okay. Feel it fully, but don't stop there. Don't get stuck in the story. Step back and ask, what can this teach me? How can I grow from this? What if this is exactly what I needed? The Stoics believed every hardship was a forge, and you were the iron. Heat doesn't ruin the metal, it reshapes it, strengthens it, reveals its edge. So, what fire are you walking through today? And what kind of person might emerge on the other side? You're not made fragile, you're made for friction. Your muscles grow under resistance, so does your character. Now let's take this into your daily life. You miss the opportunity. Instead of sulking, you study. You lose the deal. Instead of quitting, you analyze. You fail hard. Instead of collapsing, you breathe and build back better. Not because it's easy, but because it's essential. Each obstacle a mirror, each failure a teacher, each disruption a doorway, and on the other side of that door, a version of you, wiser, softer, stronger. Here's a powerful practice. The next time something blocks your plans, pause. Then write this is good because, and finish the sentence. Force your mind to find value in what your heart still resists. This is good because it's teaching me patience. This is good because now I'm rethinking my approach. This is good because it shows me I still have more to learn. Over time, you rewire your response. Obstacle, opportunity. Hardship, or harvest. Delay, development. That's how the Stoic lives. Not untouched by life's storms, but rooted deep beneath them, like a tree, bending, not breaking. And when others see you face hardship without rage, when they watch you turn failure into growth, they'll wonder, how do you stay so calm? How do you keep moving forward? And your answer will be simple. Because I no longer run from obstacle. I walk toward them and find myself on the other side. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." So ask yourself now, what's the one thing you're seeing as a block that might actually be a doorway? What pain are you carrying? That could become your power if you let it reshape you. You are not the setback. You are the spirit that refuses to be stopped. You are not the failure. You are the force that gets back up. You are not what went wrong. You are what goes right after everything feels wrong. So, walk forward, right into the obstacle, and say, thank you for showing me where I still need to grow. Because the path isn't easy. It isn't straight. It isn't smooth, but it's yours. And the moment you see the block as the beginning, everything changes. You become unstoppable, not because the road gets easier, but because you get stronger. And the wall in front of you, it's not the end. It's your next step, your next breath, your next transformation. The way forward is through. Number 7, reframe the narrative. You tell yourself a story every day, quietly, in the background, sometimes without even noticing it. And that story, it shapes everything, not the facts, but the frame. You see, it's not what happens, but what it means to you that creates suffering, that late reply. You frame it as rejection. That slow progress, you call it failure. That disagreement, you decide it's betrayal. But what if you're wrong? What if the facts are neutral and the pain comes from the story you wrapped around them? Epictetus knew this well. He said, man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. The moment you pause and look at your narrative, you reclaim your mind. That's Stoic power. Not to deny reality, but to choose how you relate to it. Not to avoid pain, but to take its sting away by naming it differently. Let's make this real. You're passed over for something you worked hard for. A promotion, a client, a chance. Your first instinct, I'm not good enough. They don't value me. Why do I even try? And now the pain grows, not because of the event, but because of the frame you gave it. But what if you paused and reframed? This wasn't about my worth. Maybe it opened space for something better. Maybe I needed this to redirect my path. Now you breathe. The pressure softens, the narrative shifts, the story changes, and so do you. This isn't mental trickery, it's mental clarity. Your mind is a lens. What you focus on grows. What you name defines how it feels. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. One says, "This is ruining my day." The other says, "A chance to practice patience." Same event, different stories, different lives. That's what framing does. Think of it like a camera. The world is wide, but what you zoom in on is what fills the picture. So what have you been zooming in on lately? The wound or the wisdom, the loss or the lesson you get to choose. Here's a simple practice when something triggers frustration. Pause and ask, what else could this mean? What is the kindest possible interpretation? What story would my best self tell about this? Not to escape the truth, but to find a version of it that heals instead of harms. Let's go deeper. Sometimes the harshest narratives aren't about others. They're about you. You make a mistake, and the inner voice says, you always mess things up. You're not meant for this. Everyone sees you're a fraud. But would you speak that way to someone you love? Would you shame them for being human? For trying, for falling once on a long walk? Of course not. So why speak that way to yourself? The Stoics believed you are not your emotions. You are not even your thoughts. You are the one hearing those thoughts and deciding which ones to keep. That's where your freedom lives. In choosing the story, you can look at your past and say, I failed, or I grew. You can look at a conflict and say, they hurt me, or they showed me where I still need healing. You can look at today and say, nothing's going right, or everything is refining me. And in that tiny shift, you take the pen back. You become the narrator again. Here's another idea. Use your journal to rewrite your stories. Take a recent event that felt difficult. Write the version your mind keeps repeating. Then write two alternative versions. Ones rooted in growth, ones spoken with compassion, ones that still hold truth. But release the pain. You'll be amazed not at how the world changes, but how you do. Because the brain is plastic. It rewires itself around your chosen thoughts. And every time you reframe, you teach it calm. You teach it trust. You teach it to see clearly instead of catastrophically. So I ask you now, what story are you telling that's keeping you small? What event are you replaying that needs a new frame? What inner voice needs a new script? You don't need to wait for life to get easier. You need to see it differently. That's where freedom begins. So the next time the moment stings, don't just react. Reflect, reframe, not because it erases the pain, but because it puts the pain in perspective. You are not the story you've been handed. You are the one who decides how it's told, and the one who reframes reclaims. Number 8. Embrace voluntary discomfort. You wake up and everything is soft. The bed is warm. The air is quiet. The phone is within reach. Comfort everywhere. But deep down you feel it. A dullness, a softness of the mind. Not of the pillow. You're comfortable, but not strong, not sharp. The Stoics saw this trap. They warned that comfort makes you forget how strong you really are. Seneca, a man of immense wealth, didn't run from hardship. He chose it. He practiced it. He called it voluntary discomfort. He wrote, "Set aside now and then a number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, so that it may be said of you, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" You pause. Let those words land. Is this the condition I feared? What if the pain you avoid is actually the key to your power? What if, by stepping into discomfort on purpose, you train your mind to be unshakable when life doesn't ask permission, because life will get uncomfortable? You won't be ready if you've only practiced ease. So why embrace discomfort? Because it gives you perspective. It resets your expectations. It reminds you, I can do more with less. I don't need everything to be perfect. I am not ruled by cravings or comfort. That's not punishment. That's preparation. Think of it like weightlifting. No resistance, no muscle, no stress, no strength, no discomfort, no depth. Now imagine this. 1 day a week, you eat simply, dress plainly, silence your screens, walk instead of drive, sit with your hunger instead of filling it immediately. You do this not because you're poor, but because you're training your mind to detach, training your ego to shrink, training your soul to remember what truly matters. And in that practice, you feel something rise inside you, a quiet pride, a sense of control, not over the world, but over yourself. Here's the paradox. The more comfort you chase, the more fragile you become, the more discomfort you embrace, the more resilient you become. Seneca didn't ask you to suffer endlessly. He asked you to choose challenge before it chooses you. So when real hardship comes, you don't crumble. You nod. You say, I've been here before. I walked through this when I didn't have to. Let's go deeper. Voluntary discomfort isn't just about simplicity. It's about control. You fast to remember you're not a slave to food. You stay silent to remember you're not ruled by noise. You resist buying to remember joy doesn't come from things. And each time you regain a piece of your freedom. Try this. Pick one form of voluntary discomfort each week. Maybe it's eating plain food. Maybe it's a cold shower. Maybe it's walking miles instead of driving. Maybe it's turning off your phone for a whole day. It doesn't have to be dramatic, just intentional. You're saying to the world, I can live without this. I can be okay without ease. I can still find peace in simplicity. That's Stoic living. Not harsh, not joyless, but grounded, liberated. Because when you stop needing everything, you can enjoy anything. When others panic at inconvenience, you breathe, you adapt, you smile. Not because it's fun, but because it's familiar. You've been here before on purpose, and you survived. You grew, you learned. Here's a metaphor. Think of your mind like a blade. Comfort dulls it, discomfort owns it. If you never sharpen it, don't be surprised when it fails you in battle. But if you've practiced with challenge, you walk into hardship with calm. You know what matters. You know what lasts. You know what you can do without. So let me ask you, what comforts have quietly weakened you? What can you let go of just for a moment to remember your strength? What fear are you carrying? That would disappear if you simply faced it willingly. The Stoics didn't crave suffering. They craved strength. And strength requires rehearsal. Not just when life falls apart, but when life is good, especially then. Because that's when comfort creeps in and starts whispering lies. You can't live without this. You need more. You're not okay unless things are easy. But you know better now. You felt it in the quiet of doing less, in the discipline of choosing discomfort, in the pride of walking through fire when no one asked you to. You carry that fire now, so let this be your practice, not to seek suffering, but to stop fearing it, not to reject comfort, but to rise above needing it, because the one who chooses discomfort on purpose is ready for anything. You pause and remember where this journey began. A restless mind pulled by distractions, overwhelmed by desire, shaken by emotion. Now, after walking through 9 quiet disciplines, you can feel it. Something inside you has shifted. You're not just reacting, you're observing. You're not being controlled, you're choosing. And this is the quiet reward of a trained mind. But if you don't keep this alive, if you drift back into noise and neglect the storm returns, you'll once again find yourself ruled by every trigger, overwhelmed by small things, chasing what you don't need and fearing what hasn't happened. Your mind is a garden. It won't stay peaceful unless you tend to it. And every day the weeds will try to grow. Doubt, ego, fear, craving. So return to the practices. Breathe before reacting. Zoom out before judging. Pause before wanting. Prepare before falling. And if these teachings brought you calm, if you felt even a moment of stillness today, then let this be your reminder. You're not alone, and this work is worth continuing. You're invited to return here anytime, to walk further, to go deeper, to train gently, without pressure, without ego. Because the mind you master masters everything else. Guard it, guide it, grow it, and the world will no longer shake you. It will simply reflect your inner stillness.